rained there around 8:30. I said, ah, boy, that's to cool off the heat that coming just now. So, how was everything? I had a great weekend. I must honestly say. I went to a wedding where my daughter was the one getting married. And that was so joyful to be able to walk down my daughter down the aisle and give her to the love of her life, Mr. Akim Bobatwi. And they got in to their vows, and eventually we had Mr. and Mrs. Akim and Sasha Bonkamper Bobatwi Bonkamper, any which way you want to put it. The two lovebirds have built their nest, and I wish them all the best. And I couldn't have been a prouder father at that moment and a happier camper when I told Marva and Rosemond, welcome to the family, and the rest of the Bobatwis and the Rosemond's families, welcome to the family. It was a great gathering. We were up on Pelican Peak. I must thank Artemia for a job well done. I want to say a special thank you to my son and his team at Cocky Turtle for the snacks they rolled out for the wedding celebration. It was truly an amazing affair. The families were all there, and I was truly honored to be the father of the bride on Saturday gone. Let me get over to the business now, because there's a lot of things to talk about. A lot of things happened during the week, last week. So I need to understand though a few things. And I saw some things on Facebook that I really want to address. And one of them was this video doing the circulation. I think it was Ghetto News that put it out. Had to do with the fisherman on the French side. Fisherman has a boat registered on the Dutch side, living on the French side, and was told by the gendarmerie he cannot fish in French waters because his boat is registered on the Dutch side. And my question is very simple, because the government gonna have to get off their backside now and ask the prefecture for nonsense going on. French concrete trucks coming over every day with concrete, dumping it on our side. We can't go over to do it. Their boats fishing in our waters, but we can't fish in their waters. It's either both of us gonna have the same rights, or nobody gonna have any rights. Because our government needs to learn to stand up for its people. The boat is registered on the Dutch side. He's living on the French side. How many civil servants we don't have living on the French side? For God's sakes, we even had senators living on the French side. So let us not start a war that is not needed. Phillipsburg was so happy when they signed the new border demarcation and blah, 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 blah. All boiling back down to the Treaty of Concordia of 1648. But now we can't fish in French waters? What for nonsense is this? I thought we had free movements of goods and people. Or is that only on the road and not in the sea? Because if that is the case, then let's make it very clear. So we all know where we stand and what we are allowed to do and what we are not allowed to do. So both sides understand it. Because I don't believe that the French government meant that to happen. And if our government doesn't react to it, then we're stupid. Because what you allow to happen is what is going to become the norm, no matter how it is. Now, the verdict is in. We remain in at 15 seats. We have now 58,000 plus in the registry. I know it was 60-something thousand. They did a cleanup, and I know they are still going to continue cleaning up, something I support wholeheartedly. If you don't live here or you don't have the right to vote here, you shouldn't be in the registry here. It doesn't happen in other countries either, so we shouldn't be the exception to the rule. So I do support that. Unfortunately, for those that had hoped that we were going to 17 seats and would have made the jump to get a seat easier, unfortunately that's not going to happen. We have more voters this year, so it means you're going to have to get more votes to get a seat. And that means for the new parties and the smaller parties that might be a difficult something. But it is what it is. So everybody, if I can follow the trend right now, A lot of people are frustrated with the government we have, so they don't want to come out and vote. But that's going to be for the account of those in government right now, the parties that run the government. The newer parties, I think they stand a better chance when it comes to that, with people coming out to vote, because they're coming out to vote for a change now. Not tomorrow, but now. They want that change. And they're going to get that change, believe you me. So, another thing that has caught my eye, and I got a few phone calls, and I didn't pay attention to it for the last 2 months, to be very honest with you. But when I got the calls, I said, you know, hey, this person is hitting on a note that many people have not seen. You can recall some time ago, there was a whole big press briefing and press release on how the Minister of VSA and the Minister of Justice were coming together, and they were going to fix up the job market for all those businesses that were given the opportunity now to register the people that have been working for them for a significant point of time, and that they will then give them their residency permit and their work permits once they qualified. Now, criteria were made, criteria were put out, many businesses applied, but nobody getting permits. No permits are coming out from the Ministry of Justice, we understood, making it impossible for the Ministry of Permits to give a work permit. Now, I don't know the whole story, but I'll say this much. Business people are concerned now that you're going to get these fly-by-night raids, where they went and registered the people, nothing is happening, and the next thing you know, there's a raid at the business, and then the business is fined a significant amount of money because they have somebody illegally working there. Somebody they went and requested a permit for, based on the recommendations of the Minister of Justice and the Minister of VSA. So I want to stir up the pot yet, but get all your act together, and all your two ministers, instead of balling up at each other, go and work with each other and get it done. Because the school children are saying how the Minister of Justice tell the Minister of VSA to go fly a kite. She ain't doing that. So again, the only ones that are going to get hurt in this are the businesses and the people that are working for the businesses. Because those are the ones that in all good faith went and applied to get done what was offered to them. They didn't ask for it, it was offered to them. So again, when we do these things, we got to be serious about how this is going to be done. To Caribbean Palms, thanks for the cup. Really keeps the coffee nice and warm. Another issue that was brought to my attention, and I cannot speak for all because I know of people being asked for information at this point in time still, is the gun licenses. A lot of people said, Bunks, did you get your license? Everybody, I applied to, I follow the things. You have to do your doctor, you have to go to the psychiatrist, different things you have to do. And then you hand in everything. And this is something that started last year. We are now in the 6th month of 2023. And you're not hearing anything. So maybe I ask humbly that maybe the Minister of Justice in the press briefing explains what's happening so that people understand, you know, what's going on. This is not a complaint. This is just people are asking if I knew anything. I said, you know what? I have the platform. I'll ask the question. So maybe we can hear something, because I haven't heard back anything from the committee that we sent everything to, because we have to send it to, I think there's a gun license committee that was brought to life, and they're the ones handling it. So again, maybe we can hear something and we can take it from there and see how that works. I breathe a minute. You know, I find it so unfortunate that Mr. Masselgums tendered his resignation from the steering committee. He started with them in 2018, and in 2023, 5 years later, he tendered his resignation. And I understand his resignation. I'm happy though that all funds have been allocated to projects. So there are no more funds available at the trust fund through the World Bank to allocate to any new projects. There are no more. That's one good thing. So if there's going to be any political wrangling or maneuvering to put in friends and family, it ain't gonna work. Because there's no more money to give. And the World Bank and Holland ain't going to go and change no projects because the Maarten want to change it. They're all going to see it's an election year. So that is a good thing. Unfortunate though that we lost a good man. Because you can say what you want about Marcel. Marcel, I know Marcel a long, long time. Mausa, I call him. He has always been for this country. He has always stood with this country. We might disagree on certain political issues. We might even disagree on certain ways of doing things. But Marcel was for Sint. And that's important. Marcel was able to keep the Dutch side and the French side as one. That's important. So Marcel, whatever you're going to do, I know you're retired a long time ago, but you know, I wish you all the best. And at least I am going to tell you, thank you very much for what you did over the past 5 years with the monies, with the trust fund, with the steering committee. We didn't always see eye to eye on everything, but at least I respect you for who you are and what you did for this country. Thank you very much. GB, happy to hear that you all took a decision on your strategy moving forward. So well, the strategic energy partnership that you all did with Carilec and with the management. You all cut ties and you're moving on. I'm happy that you all made a decision. Because this is the problem very often. We leave things linger. And when you leave a sore fester, it can get real bad. You all cut the ties and everybody moves on. The gentleman will get what is due to him in accordance with the court case. And the country will get some stability to move on. So again, like I said, it is what it is. But at least we have clarity on how we're going forward. What caught me also was that court case. I don't think many people paying attention to it, but it can have a serious impact. The court case, the recent court case about St. Maarten, in St. Maarten, about these luxury villas. Now again, nothing against the verdict. I just found it interesting that in luxury neighborhoods, when you buy a house or buy a villa and it says for personal use, then it means you gotta live in it. If I buy a house and I rent it out to somebody else, I can't mean that's personal use. It's people in there. But if it means that if I buy the house, only I can live in it, then we shouldn't sell houses to companies because companies cannot live in it. That's not personal. And these homes were sold to companies. You see, this is the problem with the verdict that I had. Because the companies bought it under the pretext that they can do certain things with it. And then a court case says, no, you can't. But at least it opened the door for anybody and everybody in St. Maarten who feel or who believe that in their neighborhood you can only build a house to live and you cannot build a house to do Airbnb or whatever else, rented as an apartment because it's not personal, that the court also agrees to that. Because very often people get land from the government, which is not, listen, if it's commercial, you can do whatever you feel like because it's commercial. But very often they get a parcel of land, they build a house and an apartment on it, or they build 2 apartments on it, and then they rent them out. But then that too is now in contradiction to this verdict. And that would mean that government has to go and start checking what people are doing with the lands, not to get themselves confronted with court cases and the people where people have to get out of the apartments because it's not personal use. That personal usage is a dangerous something. And that's what I was trying to do. To understand it, I didn't have the verdict in front of me to read it, so I read what the newspaper said. But I was amazed how the judge imposed a fine of $1,500 a day if they were not off Airbnb and they were not off VRBO. I don't know if you can get off within a day. I just found it, yeah, how would I say? harsh to put a day. But again, hey, justice is justice. They have their explanation and understanding why they do certain things or how Airbnb works. I don't know, so I ain't getting into it. But I just know now a presidency has been set on how these things can work and how they cannot work. So again, it is something that I'm sure will have an effect moving forward, and we will see where it goes from there. Mother Earth, are we destroying her or not? And you'll say, but we are going with this. Well, very simple. There were some discussions, there are some raging debates right now about, are we reaching the tipping point where the damage to the earth will become irreversible? You can't fix it. Now, what do I mean with you can't fix it? Well, very simple. Once the ice caps melt, you can't freeze them back. You can't put back the North Pole. You can't put back the South Pole. Yes, water will rise, but that path is gone. That means the earth will be getting warmer. That means corals in the seas will start dying. It means your air quality will go backwards. It means the biodiversity will change forever. And one of the big problems is the usage of fertilizers. The loss of fresh water will become a problem. These are all things that we need to continue living in this world called Mother Earth. While you have people like Elon Musk already talking about going to live on Mars and the moon, and we laugh and say, but that's a lunatic. He won't be the lunatic when this earth doesn't or can't carry life anymore. We are 8 billion people right now on this earth. By 2015, we anticipate to have reached 11 billion, an additional 33%. There are 2 countries that right now carry a third of this world, China and India. But the people that talk about climate change come from the rich countries, the Western Hemisphere. And those that need to feed their people come from countries that can't afford to fight climate change because they don't have what is most needed in a developing country. To boost the economy, you need electricity. So if the Western world would have invested heavily into solar or wind energy in countries like that, the chance of burning coal and burning fuel would have dropped. And eventually, you would have been able to make a dent, not a stop, a dent. Electrical cars, all these things need energy. Energy needs to be produced. So while we say, hey, it's a great thing that we're doing this, you need that energy. And that energy, you can get it in renewable forms and fashions. But that's the war that's raging. Do we really need it? Do we really want it? It's the same with generic medication. While we need it, and SFV says we need it, Big Pharma says absolutely not. No generic medication. You're not going to buy generic medication for a few cents instead of a few dollars, because Big Pharma still controls all governments. Not some, all. Don't fool yourself. So again, the problem we are having with Mother Earth is that we have now reached to a point where we are going to once and for all change the way the earth is going to continue moving forward. The ice caps are melting. The corals, especially everything but the Great Barrier Reef in Australia and throughout the Caribbean. You can remember a few years back, Tacho Barrowfoots was balling because the corals were turning white. Is because the corals gave off that color that they had because the water got a degree or 2 warmer. They gave off everything and everything started dying and they become white. And you got to replant corals trying to hope to have coral reefs, because once coral reefs disappear, so do the fish. So you see, there are things that are happening in this world. When you go to Brazil, Brazil has the green heart of the world. It's called the Amazon, and they're just chopping it away to build cities for people to live. You see, there's a lot of things that are happening in this world that we, the little Samaritan, has absolutely no control over. But we are at the forefront of climate change, because the storms that are going to rage in the Caribbean are going to be stronger because the waters are warmer. When the ice cap melts, the lower lying islands, Bahamas, they have what, 700? By the time this crisis with water, with high water rise happens, they might have 2 or 3. They will disappear. A lot of these islands will disappear. Parts of St. Maarten will disappear in 30 to 50 years if climate change goes unchecked. Because at the end of the day, like it or not, when those ice caps melt and 70% of the earth is water, when it melts, it is only going to rise. They ain't going away. They ain't going up in space. Whatever evaporates comes back down someplace else on the earth. So it means that you have a very serious situation on your hands. Not doom and gloom today. Doom and gloom for the next generation. My grandchildren will grow up having to deal with a serious difference on Mother Earth, if we like it or if we don't like it. So again, we need to address climate change. We need to do what we can do. But most importantly, we need to prepare for climate change. Climate change is already happening. We see it in the storms. Look at the floodings all over the world, the heavy rainfalls, the mudslides, the tornadoes in Miami nowadays. I mean, look, those were not things that happened 50 years ago or 100 years ago. But they're happening now because the earth, the atmosphere is changing. And when you prepare for hurricanes, you better take that along. Otherwise, you'll get a surprise of your life when a hurricane strikes once again. So, I think it's a great topic for discussion. I don't want to take it out of context as if St. Maarten has money to do all kind of things and be the front runner in climate change. No, we don't. But we need to make our position on climate change clear. We can look at the region, we can talk along with the region, but if we don't have the money to make the change in the region, we shouldn't be the front runner in the region to look nice or feel important. We need to protect our beaches. We need to protect our coastline. We need to protect our hills. They do make a difference in climate change. Let's move on. Story time. I chose this one and I decided I'm going to touch it. Normally I don't play too much. I like to throw a shot or two. But I was called and said, listen, you hear the minister talking on SOS Radio Friday gone? And I said, no. So they sent me the show and I took my time. I said, let me listen to the show. Let me see what the young man has to say, because, I don't want to judge the book by the cover. So let me listen to what he's saying. And I realized in his whole talk that it's somebody's fault for what's happening. He blamed his elders outright, that they have no clue what they did and they forsake this country. The same elders that gave him a platform to run on today, to be in government, those same elders forsake this country. He could say it any other way he want. That's what he said. I didn't say it. He said it. And that they did a lousy job. You know what he made me think of? The St. Maarten Donald Trump. It's not me. It's them. It's conspiracy. It's this. It's that. Man, please, little boy. Please. What I found hilarious is that he was pounding his chest with his ego. 27 years old, I was a minister, this and a man. Nobody gives a flying bat what you were when they're hungry. when they don't have a future ahead of them because things are closing down on them. Nobody cares about that. Nobody cares. You know what they care about? That they have a job, that they can put food on the table, take care of their children, their family, pay the utility bills. That's what people care about, you jacko. Not that you were a minister at 27. Who cares? Not me, not the wrong people around. When I talked to the people, they said, look at that idiot making a fool of himself on a radio station. Billy D reeled your little backside in, you didn't even notice it. You had no clue. You made yourself the fool of the century. My God, man. But you know, again, like I said, he even went and started talking about facts. What's a fact and what's not a fact? And but well, I fact checked some of the things. So we're going to discuss that to make sure that clarifications are given to what he said was a fact. And I will tell you what was not a fact. So let's start. Because I think the poor young man said that in his memory, because, you know, Billy threw the roads and he jumped at it. He said, yeah, and the company this and the company that. And all his life, he only knew that company doing asphalt roads. And I said to myself, but wait a minute. Wait a minute. But this boy must have eaten stupid bush. Link 1. Phase 1 and 2. Soalika Boulevard. All of these things. Up South Reward. LB Scott Road. Those roads. They were built by Cope St. Maarten, Cope Europa, Cope Chukum, whatever you want to call them. Not Windward Roads, boy. They were done under the commissioner that came from your party. If you don't know, ask. Also, the former UP leader was working with that company when they built the festival center and all the roads around it, the beautification of Sucker Garden. If you don't know, ask. I'll tell it to you. But don't go out and make dumb statements. Factual statements. Oh, they put us behind, and if he could have started the plant, man, you can't even start your camel. Let's start an asphalt plant. So you stop talking stupidness. And you're going to buy a new asphalt plant, and as government, listen, say what you want. Claude Watty had a philosophy. He always said, government don't need equipment. Give the people of the country the rights to own the equipment and do the work. MNO, that's another one that did asphalt. You're correct, Soliga K9. But MNO changed the name from Cope to MNO. So same company, different name. Again, when I was in public works, I myself had a serious issue with not owning equipment because when we had weather, we were dependent on people. So that government buys some trucks and backhoes, and we did get a good handout from the Dutch in 2017 after Irma, and I was very grateful for that. And we still have those trucks running today. We still have those backhoes running today. And I know they are fixing them now. They brought in people that can really do a job on them. Again, that I understand. But you can buy an asphalt plant to do asphalt? Really? Look. I know you have no concept of how infrastructure works. Do yourself a big favor. Talk to the head of New Works. The good gentleman can help you. Because when you talk like this, people can really see the idiot in you. Because I don't know what to tell you. You really have no clue, son. Maya, I also heard him use a phrase that caught my attention. Cheaper is not necessarily better. I agree with you on that. Nor is the most expensive better. Because that's your norm. In all the tenders thus far, a competitive price meant nothing. In the garbage, fellas that have been hauling garbage for 20 years were screwed with a better price than the one that won. The building, no disrespect to the contractor because he's a great fella, doing a great job. Like it or not, there were 3-4 contractors with a better price that have the same, if not better, qualifications. And then you say they were closer to the government price. Are you serious? Are you listening to yourself? Government makes a price. We have had that in the past, that we made a price and we were wrong because the prices that came in were different. So then we review our price. We review our internal calculations. And then you made the cardinal mistake. Yeah, it used to be 800 and something thousand guilders. You're right. You have to ask those that calculated the 800 and something how it got to that. Because when that tender took place, I was there. I was still in government. You were not the minister. You were not the minister. You know who won that tender? Ask your colleague minister, who used to be a parliamentarian and a contractor before. Ask him who won that tender. And ask him what happened. You want to know facts? Let me throw them in your face for you. Because you have no clue what you're talking about. You're just making a mockery out of the ministry. You have no clue. But I'm going to tell it to you straight in your face. So that you understand. When you open your little mouth, make sure that you know what you're saying. People might be afraid to correct you, but I'm not afraid to correct you. I am not your equal, son. Honestly. I don't want to attack you, but I must correct you. Because what you're doing is utter nonsense. I listened to you talking about the CFT said that the bond was not legal. That's not true. The central bank gave the bond, called the bond, and there were different companies. I believe it was SFV, APS, Maduran, Curiel, Simat, Curacao, all of them had bought into the bond. And then the CFT said the bond is not correct because Sint Maarten can't cover and carry the bond because of their budgetary constraints and their budgetary deficit. And that made everybody run away. If you're going to say it correct. Just tell it correctly. Why are you trying to make something sound better by telling a lie? Just tell it the way it is. I was in Parliament when it happened. We got the documents. We all read it. You heard what your minister friend tell you. But I tell you what we got on paper. So again, you know, there are things that we just got to be cautious how we talk to the public. The same goes with India. When I spoke about India a few weeks ago, not a peep. Suddenly I saw the Minister of Finance come out and take responsibility that's his. He is the Minister of Finance. Did he create the India? No, he did not. Is he responsible for India? Bet your sweet ass he is. He is the Minister of Finance. He is the shareholder representative of Sint Maarten in the Central Bank of Curaçao and Sint Maarten. If you like that or not, that's the fact. This whole India started way back. 2012, 13, 14, someplace around there. And it ran its way up until 2018 when the central bank stepped in and said, ho, 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 this cannot continue. They took it to courts, they asked the judge to put it under their auspices, which the judge did, and the whole Ansari case started, etc., etc., etc. But guess what? When you see the amount of people living in Sint Maarten that were commissioners on the board of directors of India, they took millions from India as board of directors, while willing and knowingly were robbing the pension fund blind, you shouldn't be talking the way you're talking. That's all I'm going to tell you. Go check who they was, check where they were. Then you're going to know what I'm talking about. And that, sonny boy, is a fact. Now, I don't know how to put this one. How it was? Christopher Emmanuel is the one that made the Irma dump. I'm going to laugh. You know why? Because I am convinced beyond a shadow of a doubt that you have no clue what happened with Hurricane Irma. No clue whatsoever. When Hurricane Irma came, we had an EOC. An EOC that is chaired by the Prime Minister of the country. In 2017, we all know who the Prime Minister was. Your former party leader. And things went haywire. I remember all the looting and all that. The governor got involved and blah, 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 blah. When all of that was over, we had to clean up the place. We had to clean up the country. And the cleanup was regulated through the EOC, not through the ministry. I need you to understand this clearly, son. EOC decided what we were going to do. EOC was in charge. So let me break that down for you. Immediately, the present Prime Minister, Sylvia Jacobs, Rafi Boseman, Richard Gibson, who else we had in there? Christopher Emmanuel. They had nothing to say in the EOC. The Prime Minister was responsible for the EOC. When instructions were given and agreements were made, they were made in the EOC, Emergency Operations Center. Remember, we had first 10 days of what we called martial law. The governor and the military were in charge. You think that in those 10 days we were waiting to clean up this country? What we did is we were stockpiling in all the neighborhoods. Kimsha was loaded, down by the movies was loaded, the ball field was loaded, up in St. Peter's by Benny and them was all over was loaded with garbage. And then it was decided we cannot continue loading the landfill. We need to find a place to put steel and greenery. And the decision was taken in the EOC. I was there to put it on the ball field, the football field, with the condition and understanding that it would be removed. I need you to understand those last pieces. It would be removed. Good. Let's move on. So we stacked it there and it remained there. Then came the trust fund and the World Bank. And if you had read the documents, and I have to say, if you had read them, you would have realized that the conditions that we agreed to as government that time, and by that time, Emmanuel wasn't there anymore. It was first Miklos, then Waiver, and then you. Yeah, you. Where it was going to be removed. But you agreed that it can stay. If you don't know what was going on in your own ministry, now you know it. I was in there. Louis Brown was in there. I really don't know. I don't know what to even say anymore. I can't believe that you would go on radio and talk this craziness. But I know it's politics. So you all feel that you are going to come at people. Look, you can come at me as much as you want. Fact is this and fact is that. You know what's a fact? I'm going to joke or a fact. You said my conviction is a fact. No, my conviction is not a fact. That's how dumb you are. It's not irrevocable yet. And what I was convicted on is definitely not a fact. Because the judge said, he heard somebody say that he gave me money. That same good gentleman, I hear this go by him. I don't hear this go by him. That same good gentleman told the judge a month and a half ago, I never said that. And the judge wrote something that he never heard. That too is on record. But come September, come sit in the courthouse when you see me get acquitted. Because then you're going to know how late it is. Then you're going to know what the real facts are. But you see, Sonny, I know you just run on emotions. You don't run on rationale. You think that you got a sweet mouth and you're going to talk your way out of things. It ain't going to happen. I'm going to fact check you every walk down the road moving forward. I don't like hypocrites and I don't like liars. And you fit that jacket right now. You know, I sometimes wonder where we are going with certain things. Because calculations that are being made right now and prices that are being put out right now for tenders need to be reviewed. And I'm going to deal with it later with the governor's role. Because the governor is the gatekeeper of the government of St. Maarten. And accountability also is part of that. So we're going to talk about that just now, because that's going to be one of my most serious topics today. Let me close off with a little joke on this little young boy. The young boy said that his conscience is clear, and if he makes a mistake, he made them unaware and unintentional. And I started to laugh. I said, no, if your conscience is so clear, why are you going to the OB woman all the time? Why are you over there all the time? I know you, let's go there. People come and tell me let's go there. Why? Why are you going there? Because it's a joke. But I'll tell you this, son, and remember it good. I, Claudius Anthony Boncamper, I have 24 years under my belt working in the Ministry of Romy. Before that used to be the sector ROB. Before that used to be Public Works. I worked there in a management position. All right, we back. We're having an audio problem there. I see, I think I was hitting him too hard. But again, 24 years I've worked in Romy. I've seen good times, I've seen bad times. I've gone through many natural calamities. Mother Nature punished us quite often. And I've gone through a few rough man-made disasters where we should have known better and we could have done better. But the one thing I never did was to distinguish who I would help because of which political party they were on, or what their family name was, or what their wealth was. If you had a right to get the help, I would give you that help. Any minister that worked under me, or worked with me, can tell you, pick up the phone and call Boncamper, and it will be done. Because it was my job. That's all it was, my job. I don't need to own Vromi. I don't believe I own Vromi. But you know what I believe? I believe in loyalty. I believe in taking care of your employees. I have done that when I was there. We didn't always agree. We had our disputes. We had our arguments. Lord, sometimes I wanted to choke the living shit out of some of them, and they wanted to do the same to me. But you know what? We had one motto. All for one for all. Loyalty to the bone. That's something, son, you don't have. You don't buy it, you earn it. When you reach there and you realize where your place is in the food chain, then me and you will continue having a talk about Vromi. Pre-clearance and its benefits. Pre-clearance at our airport has been a discussion that is ongoing for a very, very long time. And we have heard hundreds of excuses why we shouldn't do it. The biggest excuse being money. But guess what? Sometimes you don't have to take what everybody say to face value and do some work about what it is, what you want to gain. And pre-clearance, naturally, the cost factor is real because you have customs, you have immigration officers. These people will get a status of a diplomat nearly because they have guns, they are allowed to carry their guns to work and home, not walking around all over, but from home to work they carry their weapons, they're allowed to protect themselves, they don't pay taxes here, just like how the World Bank office is allowed to do it here, so will they. It's that simple. The parcel of land where the pre-clearance is US soil. It means they can arrest you in there, they can deport you from there. Those are the type of things that it means. Those are the cost factors. Yes, it's going to cost. They ain't going to Sundial School or Milton Peters College. They're going to go to an American-based school so that their degrees, they can go to college afterwards in America, because those people that come here to live with their families, they ain't coming here for 20 years. They're coming here for 3 years, maybe 5 years, and then they're gone again. So yes, we're going to have to pay for all these things because we are disrupting their lives for wherever they live, and we bring them here to do a service for this country. Because at the end of the day, pre-clearance is for St. Maarten, not for America, it's for us. Now, the catch with pre-clearance, when an aircraft is cleared in St. Maarten, it means it went through US Customs and US Immigration. So when you reach there, for the passenger, the comfort is you're just walking through the gate, you're picking up your luggage, and you're gone. You don't go stand up for an hour and a half in the immigration line. You don't. That's one. For the airline, it means that when they reach in America, they don't need the aircraft to be cleared with immigration and customs. And it means that they are back in the air within 30 to 45 minutes instead of 2 to 2.5 hours on the ground waiting for the flight to be cleared by customs and immigration. Aircrafts that are flying make money. Aircrafts at the gate cost money. So if we do pre-clearance, aircrafts like Southwest, let me put this, all low cost carriers, Frontier and all them, they would fly in here tomorrow with a breeze. Because their aircrafts are back up in the air right away. As soon as they touch down in America, they're back up again. So all those that are flying the national routes in America will gladly fly to St. Maarten because it becomes a national route. Because it's cleared. That's what it means. It means that the so wished for airlift with low-cost carriers will put an impact on the prices of American and JetBlue and all of them. They're going to have to go down. Otherwise, they're going to lose their market share. That's what it means. So St. Maarten should stop worrying why Aruba got it and build their pre-clearance if they want to get it like Aruba. Aruba don't pay for American to come. American comes because it has pre-clearance and it's out, in, out. They can afford 3 flights. They can afford 4 flights. Because they're not sitting at a gate for 2 hours, 2.5 hours to be cleared, when they can do that within at least 30 minutes, 45 minutes. This is the pre-clearance, people. This is the gist of the pre-clearance. If we want market share, we're going to have to earn market share. Or will we wait till places like St. Kitts or Antigua and all them do pre-clearance for us to go do it? Just a question. Because that's how we are. We always wait for others to do it, and then we don't want to take risk, but we want to get the reward. It doesn't work so. You got to take a risk to get a reward. We have to do what needs to be done if we want to reap the fruits of the future of this country. It is that simple. People, pre-clearance gives you a few things. Lower airfare, more seats to the island, and a good injection into the economy of this country. That's what it's going to give you for sure. Name recognition is going to be the norm because St. Maarten becomes a national flight, not an international flight anymore. It's a simple something. We want to do it, we can. We just need to agree that we're going to do it. IPKO. Was IPKO a success? Now, depending on who you ask, the answer will be yes or no. It really depends on who you ask. Now, you ask the delegates that went to IPKO, they're going to tell you, yes, it was a great IPKO. And you know, we had such a good time, and we promised each other we're going to work towards integration into the kingdom. That's what the delegates will tell you. Most probably I would have told you that if I was there. I don't know. The other side is the people of the countries. What do they really get out of IPKO? What do they really get out of Parlatino? Those are legitimate questions to ask. We spend a lot of money sending delegates. What do we bring home other than souvenirs and some fond memories and pictures? The answer is nothing. IPKO in 2015 reached an agreement where the dispute regulation, something that was extremely valuable, was going to be worked on, and we would have had a binding agreement. And as it reached the Dutch government, they swept that off the table without even any remorse. Since then, what have we brought home that was in our favor? Other than a lot of arguments, a lot of kingdom laws, a lot of pressure, but no real results. So again, we don't have one breakthrough in the statute, not one. 13 years we have been tied to a statute that has been systematically and systemically recolonizing us. We tie ourselves to things that we cannot handle nor afford. We need to be careful. And again, I'm not going to delve into a fight about the Dutch this or the Dutch that. But the fact is that for the past 13 years, the Dutch have been the givers and we have been the takers. Whatever they give, we take. Be it money, be it conditions, anything they give, we take. And we can open our mouth and pretend different. But again, sometimes it's good to just realize the hand that you have been dealt with. And once you understand the hand you have been dealt with, you understand how to play the game. We gotta agree that a lot of things are said in IPKO, and we come back home and we're going to put this down in front of our government and we're going to then have a reaction. Really? Which ones we really put down and we had reactions on that had an effect on the well-being of the people in this country? Which one? And those that have traveled to 10, 20 IPKOs, they give all kind of stories. Bottom line is, what has it done for this country? Other than the Dutch parliamentarians get to know some of us, they come down here, they see the islands, they enjoy the 5 days, and you have a better rapport. So when they're talking about us up there, you can pick up the phone and call them and say, listen, 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 yeah, we didn't mean it so, we mean it so, and we mean it so. Because that's the reality. That's what it's about. I cannot see it different. Then we said we want to have a kingdom partners meeting, where all the kingdom partners will come together, and we're going to have this meeting, and we want Prime Minister Rutte there. And the question is this: so what Rutte is going to do? Rutte didn't care when we had the tax scandal with all the Antillean names, the Suriname names, the Moroccan names, and so 30,000 families were destroyed. He didn't care. His government felt he didn't care. Rutte decided that there's no need to apologize for slavery, nor will he give any money for slavery, because he didn't believe in it. And my thing is this: do you all believe that Rutte has any good in his heart for the CAS countries and the best islands? I don't believe so. Because we were never brought together by love. We were brought together with a very dark history in our being together, called slavery. That's what brought us together. Nothing else. Nothing else. And once you understand these things, I think we're gonna move on. Listen, every time we have to do a program, be it from the European Unions with funds and so, or be it with Dutch funds, the first thing that comes up is how corrupt we are. And because we're so corrupt, we can't do this, we can't do that, we can't do that. And Mia Motley gave a wonderful explanation on all of that. because it doesn't only happen here in St. Maarten, it happens throughout the Caribbean with its previous colonizers. It's the way it is. So let's not waste no time on that. We know what it is, we understand how we have to deal with it, or I hope we understand how we have to deal with it, and you move on. What I do believe though with IPKO is that the Dutch are very blunt. We have toes this long. So anything they say, we get upset. When Ed Nijpels in the last discussions of their asked the governments of Curaçao, Aruba, and St. Maarten, you all ready for climate change? What is your agenda? Everybody look at the man as if he's a crazy man to even ask a question like that. But it's a reality. Are we waiting on Holland to do climate change for us? I think we have to do that ourselves. I said it before already. We gotta do things ourselves. We can't keep waiting for people to do things for us. I just don't understand it. But nevertheless, like I said, I truly believe that we got some things to do, and we have to review if IPKO is worth it for the way we do it. We sent up 10 people up there. Maybe we should form a delegation, 3, 4. Let them represent the country. Not every faction going up there. That makes no sense. We sent 10 people up there to do what? To come back with what? Because they came back, they didn't come back with nothing. So again, what are we doing? Who decides who wins the tender, and when is the national decree required? I decided to bring this up to the front and center as the Parliament, the chair or the co-chairs, seem not to want to call the public meeting to handle the request of the parliamentarians who asked for the information, and the Minister of Romy ain't sending the information and keeps hiding behind confidentiality. Now on Friday he said, no. All the information is there. They can get it. They can do whatever has to be done with it. So call the meeting. Since all the information is there and it is not confidential, that means it can be used publicly. Then call the meeting. Because I need to explain to you something. In the past, I worked at Romy, and a tender was awarded by the Council of Ministers to contractors after the governor vetted the tender. You heard me correctly. The governor vetted the tender to ensure that the accountability, fair play, and transparency took place in accordance with good governance. The governor is the gatekeeper. Only then is a national decree signed off, and the minister responsible for the portfolio contract is mandated to sign the contracts and the national decree to execute such. This is how it was. Again, so by us, it used to be that the tender document was prepared by the department and reviewed by the financial controller, the secretary general of the ministry, and then forwarded to the minister, who then signs off the advice for the tender document. The tender document then goes to the Council of Ministers, who approve the tender document. This is just the tender document. I ain't talking about a bid yet. The document is then made public, and a date is set for information meetings. Questions are asked, evaluations are done. Eventually, the tender document, the bid, is submitted to government by the interesting bidders. So if you had 10 people will hand in a bid. Once that is done, the department then reviews and drafts an awarding advice, which is reviewed and approved by the financial controller and then the secretary general. The advice then goes to the finance department for financial review and any other reviews so needed, like the handling within the financial compatibility ordinance, and to ensure the needed budget is available. Because you can remember some time ago there we had a tender and the Minister of Finance was looking for $1 million or $2 million to put on the budget because there was no budget, but the budget was, but the tender was already approved. Can't be. Cannot be. Cannot be. But it was. Because he was in Parliament asking for the money. Think back on the garbage collection, and then you'll understand what I'm saying here. Then the Minister of Romy reviews and signs off the advice from the head of finance and signs off if he agrees with it. So once finance finishes with it, the SG of finance signs that advice, and then it goes to the Minister of Romy. He then signs it, and then it goes on to the Minister of Finance, who will then review and approve it. And once that is done, then the Council of Ministers gets the advice for review. Once the Council of Ministers has approved the advice and all the addendums of the advice. Now listen, all the addendum means all the bids, all the documents, whatever they were, are put together, and that advice with an accompanying letter presenting it to the governor with a national degree is sent to the governor. The governor will then meticulously with his cabinet review all the documents, review the advice, review the national decree. If there are anything that they don't agree with, they'll send it back and ask for corrections. If they agree with it, they will sign off the national decree and they will send it back to the Council of Ministers, who then gives it to the minister responsible for it. That minister will then sign off the national decree and then go over to signing the contracts of the publicly tendered event. This is how it was up until January 2020, to my knowledge. That's how I did it for 13 years in the country. That's how we did it. No other way. No other way. Now, when I tell you this, what I just said, it is extremely difficult for me to accept that on March 15th of this year, the Minister of Romy sends a memo to the Council of Ministers telling them that no national decree is needed because they already publicly tendered the works, and that they should remove the national decree and ensure that the Council of Ministers makes the approval so that they can go for the contractual signing. On the 16th of March, the Council of Ministers approves that memo, and the minister signs off and approves the works, the tender, and the minister signs off the contracts for district cleaning. So everything that happened the 13 years before was pushed aside, and the Council of Ministers checks the government's work. The Council of Ministers became the gatekeeper of government. The governor became the ceremonial ribbon cutter and speech giver, because he is no longer the gatekeeper of good governance. That's what the Council of Ministers decided together with the Minister of Romy. That's what happened. I don't care how you all twist it and turn it. The governor gonna come out someday and talk, because I ain't getting off of this until somebody gives us an explanation that either for 13 years we did it wrong under 5 different prime ministers, or something very unkosher going down in this Council of Ministers. It's one of the two, nothing else. There's no in between. It is fish or fowl, nothing else. That simple it is. So we're going to talk about it, because you got to understand, a lot of members of parliament have questioned this. No answers are given, no meetings are called, and we hope to go into the recess and that by August we forget it. No, we ain't gonna forget it. We ain't gonna forget it. All I hope is that this don't end wrong for the government. What bothers me is that the government apparatus didn't say much. Now maybe they did, and the council didn't agree with it, so it ain't going no place. There might have been an internal advice that says, no, you can't do this, you have to do A, B, C, D, and that was just pushed aside, because ain't nothing new for the government to push aside advices. How often haven't they pushed aside an advice of corporate counsel that tell them, don't appoint this person, don't appoint that person, they're on a political list, this is a conflict of interest, this is nepotism. Who cares? Not this government. And this is the problem. We can't change the rules of the game when they are good for friends and family. They got to be good for the country if you're going to change them. This is my problem. And They can say what they want, and they can cry foul all they want and say, oh, Bancampa this and oh, that's okay. That's all okay. I can continue doing what I believe is best to be done. And that is informing the people of this country what's going on. Because it cannot be so. It cannot be so that for 12 years under the Honorable Dr. Eugene Holiday, we had a method of working with national decrees, and suddenly now a youngster, oh, the pungy chest, a young man, he said, writes a memo with significant judicial implications while not having any kind of judicial background because he said he's an IT man. And the Council of Ministers swallows it hook, line, and sinker. Or is it because, like how I was told, everybody believe that they're the boss in the Council of Ministers and nobody listens to nobody anymore? Maybe that might be it. But again, this is a serious problem for this country, and I know it's going to create a major, major problem down the road. You know, we're creating the impression that certain things don't exist. I heard the good gentleman say that the SWAB checked this. Checked what? To my knowledge, the SWAB's report was a report on findings, not an advice, nor an opinion. They told you what they found. That doesn't make what they found law. Please, don't confuse things. Don't throw the name of SWAB and then say that's the government's accountancy and bureau that scrutinizes government. No, 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 no. When hired, Sonny boy, when hired, they do that. All right? They don't just come and do work for government for free. But the governor is the gatekeeper of the government. And he don't do it sometimes. He has to do it all the time. That's the big difference. So when you're throwing out things, man, please do it the right way. But I strongly want to suggest the Council of Advice, of which the governor is the chairman, to give some advice to the government on how public tenders should be kept, when national decrees should be made, and if it was done for the past 12 years wrong, okay, then we will have to do it the way it should be. I unfortunately don't support that system yet, because our sitting governor sat for many years as the SG of the Council of Advice. And I cannot ever recall reading an advice to government telling us that the way we are doing our advices are wrong and we don't need to bother the governor with a national decree. Because it was this same minister that with the garbage contracts had a national decree sent to the governor, Holiday. And with the district cleaning tender, doesn't send the national decree to the governor, Bailey. Why is that? You all got to explain us. Because you all are doing it. You did both of them, Minister. Explain the difference between the one from the garbage and the one from the district cleaning. Why one needed a national decree and the other one didn't need a national decree. You explain. You are Mr. Facts. Bring the facts. Because I know you're talking BS. Are we really ready for hurricane? Last time I spoke about a few of the other groups, and today I want to focus a little bit on the ESF groups. I want to talk a little bit about the airport. Are we ready? I don't believe the airport is ready. I hope that they understand going into the hurricane season and putting big tents outside is not the wisest thing to do. I know they have a schedule, but I know their planning is horrible. And we're going to end up now with a hurricane season with big tents outside, that when a serious storm comes, things will move on. And that's unfortunate, because we need a good airstrip for them to land after a calamity. That the building isn't there, that's a different story. I pray to God we don't get hit at all, because I don't think we are ready for a hurricane. I know the runway is definitely not ready yet. Sorry, the building is definitely not hurricane ready yet. So I don't want to speak doom and gloom, but I have no confidence in the management of the airport down there. And I was surprised, but I'll touch that in my closing, that the MP, an MP in government now, in the coalition, a leader of a party, don't agree with them anymore either. They get down to shop it now. The port, I do believe in that government, in that management. I have a lot of faith in that management though, I must say. And I know the port though is one of the more difficult ones because there they have containers. They start to fall, they fall into the water, they become floating objects, some of them sink to the bottom. If they're full of stuff, that stuff leaks out into the sea, and that can be detrimental to naturally the fishes and whatever there is down there. So the port is a difficult one, but I know they work very hard, they just move their stuff well. I know they just get a new crane, so I don't know how they're gonna protect that one there because she would normally be under KW. So let's hope. But again, like I said, taking the first hurricane we have had, taking be the last one. The tourism product and the hotel readiness. Now, this is one that I don't really want to go too deep into because I'm not well versed in it. But with people like Mei Ling Chung and Miguel de Weaver, I give them credit. They know what they're doing. They really, really know what they're doing. And normally, you know, when storms come, depending on the size of the storm, you want to get people off the island. You don't want to have to hold employees in a hotel to be feeding tourists when you have a calamity on your hand. Disaster time is not the time you want to have tourists on your island. So depending on how big a storm, you know, category 1, 2, or 3, I think we're still good to go. Anything above that, you don't want to keep tourists on the island. You want to ask them to please go home because it's for their own safety and it is for us because you don't want to have employees staying in the hotel to take care of tourists while they're not home taking care of their own home and families. You know, so understand, tough choices have to be made during a calamity. These are things that we need to understand how we're going to do it. Tents will be removed 2 days before storm touchdown, yeah boy. And the holes in the building will be filled up 2 days before too. I hear that so often, and when push comes to shove, it don't happen. Food security, how do we go about that? Because this is one of the most difficult items to be safeguarded. If it's a hurricane, normally it's okay. Because the storm doesn't hit the whole Caribbean, the storm doesn't necessarily hit the whole mainland of the US. So you have different ways to bring in. One of the more difficult things is water. You got to make sure though that, and that's where you're going to discuss with GB, that the tanks can hold water, and we got to look at that a little different. But very often, we have people here that store food for us. What you have to pray for is that those buildings are not destroyed during the storm, and that at least you have access to food. But we have different places on the island, so normally that works out well. And I must say that the group that organizes this, the ESF group, which is TIAT, they normally do a good job on that. Telecommunications and the radio. This is one of the most important groups during a calamity because you have to be able to have contact with each other. 2017, we lost a lot of contact with each other. Phones were shifting here, radios were shifting. You had military on the road, you have no contact with them. So the discussions were sometimes going cross, haywire. You didn't know what was happening, when it was happening, where it was happening. And eventually they got the logistics back on track. That time Prime Minister William Maarten had his hands full trying to get all those things back, but he, together with Dr. Eugene Holiday, they did a good job in getting it back together. And then every day they would meet with the respective ministers at the governor's place, or I think it was every day in the beginning, and after that every 2-3 days, as we would progress and move on. So TLM, flow, you know, they are very important, but the radio stations are also extremely important. And while we have a government radio station, and that should be the primary source of information going out to the public, other radio stations like Laser 101, look, you mightn't like how did it talk or what did it talk sometimes, but radio show hosts, they have an audience. And they are believable very often. People don't always like to believe in government. Somebody must be lying, they're covering up something. The radio show host should be given proper information and let them also decimate it. It works. Look, we still don't have the early warning systems and the fire department needed and have been asking for the past 6 years. We still don't have them. There are 100 stories why we don't have them, but we don't have them. So we're going to have to use the radio stations, the SMSs that we can on phones or whatever to get warnings and messages out, if we like it or not. These are the realities of being hurricane ready. Do we have agreements with the radio stations? Not that you're just switching over and going on their bands, because after you gave your 5-minute chat or your 10-minute chat, that radio station will continue running for hours. You need the host to be part of your message. You want the host to keep the message alive. Not that you are there for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and then you're gone. No, that's not how it works. We have learned that that's not good enough. Because if people were not listening at that time, they missed your message. We need to keep the radio stations involved around the clock. We should make sure that every hour they have updates. It's a simple something, yet an extremely effective something. We gotta make them part of the message. GB, we need to ensure that there's a water agreement in place for calamities, very specifically for calamities. You can't shut down the plants 2 days before the storm, because the tanks are going to be emptied, because a lot of people in St. Maarten don't have cisterns. So those tanks are going to become vulnerable and they're going to mash up again. A tank filled with water has a much better resistance against a hurricane than a half-filled tank or an empty tank. Please remember that. So, okay, I'm back. Let me see if I am connected. Let me see if they can hear me. All right. Can you hear me? Can you all hear me? Whoever's online, if you can just send me a tag that you can hear me. Anybody can hear me? I just want to be sure. I noticed I got a problem there with my audio just now. So, Miguel, are you hearing me? Just give me a thumbs up there if you're hearing me. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. So, we had a little problem there just now with the audio. So I'm going to have to merge these two videos eventually together again. Every time a phone call comes in, seemingly it affects the audio. So let's hope that doesn't happen for the rest of the show. But let me go down to two categories before closing. And one of the categories is, did you know? Now, did you know is one of those categories where, you know, people like to say things and ask things. And the one today is, what's sharing for elections? A lot of people call me over those things, telling me they hear this, they hear that. I don't like to get into hearsay. So, what we get in for elections exactly, as clearly people are looking out for the regulars during elections, while the imported justification goers are looking to see who they can catch, so the statement can be made that the mafia bought the elections and placed the government there. You know, that's the regular thing for elections. The question we have to ask ourselves is that true? Is that statement honestly true? Is that really the case? Now, for example, there's a memo going around that the airport CEO contract is either being extended or he's being hired in permanent service, and that's not because of his stellar performance, but about what they're getting into, what they're getting for return. Now, I don't know what's all going on, but hey, again, like they say, these days, clearly, things have changed. My opinion is the government stood by at the airport, allowed many locals to get dismissed, others to be investigated and suspended, you name it. Remarkably, during the weekend, the UP leader, MP Bryson, took a stance and said, what's going on at the airport cannot continue to go going on. And he has a problem, so many people fearing for their jobs, so many people this, so many people. And I started to laugh. And I said, okay, something changing. But then it became clear to me, the honeymoon is over. Come August, after recess, all hell gonna break loose because campaign gonna be in full swing. That's what's going on now. But like I said, it's a matter of time. Other members in parliament are blue because they didn't get a license or a piece of land in Mullet Bay, while others got. Again, I don't really have an issue that somebody gets a license or a piece of land to do business. The problem is, what were the others promised that they didn't get? Because confusion starts now. Again, a lot of promises going to be made. A lot of unrealistic promises going to be made. But hey, that's part of life. Politics always brings out the best in some of us and the worst in some of us. I know you're going to hear how much bus plates and how much taxi and G&T plates are up for grabs. I know bus drivers and taxi drivers and G&T plate holders are getting nervous because the market isn't growing, but the number of people participating in the market is going to grow, making the market then nearly unprofitable for anybody in that market, meaning they cannot make a living anymore running bus, taxi, G, or T. Again, these are things that happen during every election. Moratoriums are lifted, casino license are given, all kind of crazy things that happen during elections. Pay attention to it. Don't get caught up in the hype, because most of the time it doesn't end good for nobody. Let's hope the ombudsman doesn't get involved with another investigation, because information can't be gotten or given. But again, like I said, there are a lot of things going to happen. People get promises for land. Remember 2016, we had that. That ended up with the whole Vineyard Heights debacle, and you can name it, etc., etc. Again, like I said, all I hope that we understand that what goes up comes down, and what's done in the dark will come to light. It's that simple in politics. It just takes a little while, but it does happen. I know that some of them busy right now with their henchmen. They make real gangsters look like little altar boys. But that's for a different show. I need to tell candidates, just be on your guard. Don't be used by others to do their dirty work. You campaign and you put your best foot forward, because that's what you want people to see. You want people to elect you based on your ability and capabilities, not on what somebody tells you in the party to do. Stable or unstable, there will be no new elections. Nobody gonna call elections now. So all of those that are professing to throw down the government, please don't waste your time. Parliament is going into recess end of this month. The whole of July and the mid of August, they are out. So they're coming back into the third week of August back into office. There ain't gonna be no emergency meetings, nobody calling nothing. The Sweet 8 will become most probably the Sour 1 or 2, and the remaining 6, most probably what you're going to get is 1 or 2 ministers who will get shellacked in August, or maybe in June yet. I don't know, I don't really care. At the end of the day, we go into the polls and we're going to have elections, and the now team going to come out victorious. That much I know. That much I'm confident of. I think that the Stingray operations, I don't want to say investigations, but I want to call an investigation. But the Stingray operation will come to an end. This thing about doing things and then hiding, and the reason I say Stingray, you know, a Stingray like to hide in the sand, throw sand on top of itself and believe nobody's seeing it. But when you're looking up, down, you'll see those two little eyes. So you know exactly where he be and what he doing. So don't worry, we're going to deal with that. The airport saga and the suspensions, that was another great political one, because now suddenly everybody at the airport feel they're being investigated. Everybody feels their jobs are at risk. And now suddenly a coalition member woke up and said, no, best thing gonna happen. We're gonna put motions down in there, and we're gonna this, and we're gonna that, and we're gonna... But what you do for the last 3.5 years? You stood by and you allowed them to systemically destroy the people in there. Now again, new jobs being created. First we created one for the beauty queen. Now we have some kind of maintenance manager or something like that to go over 3 other different departments. They are making the top of the airport so heavy, they're going to bankrupt the airport eventually. Because they are just creating jobs for the sake of putting people in places. And the government is looking on because either the government is deeply involved or the government has no clue what's happening in their own company. But again, like I said, it is what it is. But I'll tell you all this much. See that investigation going on down there? Now suddenly, nobody knew the lady was the managing director of a company that has worked there for years. For years! The same people that set up Mikey gave that lady work. And now they don't know. You know, it made me think on the comment. If I'm doing something wrong, I don't know I'm doing it intentionally, unknowingly. Really? You see, I always tell people, see what is allowed in a company before we start all these things. Because in government, I know employees, civil servants, can be owner for 25% of a company, and they can do work for government as long as it doesn't interfere with their work. So let's say somebody was working in Vromi and they are doing communications work in Tiat, for example, for 25% in a company. There wasn't supposed to be an issue with something like that. Unless the government says you may not work for government any way or fashion in the first degree, second degree, whatever, like what they did recently. In the past, how many people didn't have companies doing work for government? A lot. A lot of people had. So what happened at the airport, I don't know. But the way they were bringing it over is as if this was such a big crime. This is utter nonsense. And the hypocrisy of some of them that were deeply involved with this company and this lady to now do as if they know of nothing. That is sad. Because that shows you, I ain't going to use that name today, but that shows you what type of people these are. But I'll tell you something. I hope we don't get a run on documents by employees the way we had a run on documents to the RSC TBO by the management and the want-to-be management of the airport. I truly hope so. I really hope this don't happen because this is going to only be another black eye for this country. I truly, truly don't hope so. Next week Friday, next week Sunday. So Sunday coming is Father's Day. I truly hope all the men that take care of their children and other sperm donors' children are appreciated on that special day. Always remember that a child will find another daddy if you're not the daddy at home. To all fathers, I want to wish all of you all a wonderful Father's Day. Enjoy it with your family and kids. I plan to enjoy it with my kids and my grandkids. The airport will become a disaster just now again if we don't pay attention with what's happening with the hurricane season. We have 2 waves that have pitched off the coast now, and they're going to start coming down here slowly but surely. I want you all to remember that when high winds pick up, openings become their gateway to your building. And if we don't plan properly, we are planning to fail. This goes for everybody that deals with hurricane awareness. Tomorrow, I will be on SOS 95.9 FM. And we're going to discuss some solutions to problems in this country. And I know some of them want me to put a little grease job again on some people. But I think the little fella, he gonna have a week of crying now. And then he gonna wait for a chance to come run again. And I'll be waiting. Because, you know, I got a big pot of Vaseline, brother. So be careful. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, 70, 71, 72, 73, 74, 75, 76, 77, 78, 79, 80, 81, 82, 83, 84, 85, 86, 87, 88, 89, 90, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, 100, 101, 102, 103, 104, 105, 106, 107, 108, 109, 110, 111, 112, 113, 1 Remember this, failing to plan is planning to fail. Don't ever forget that. Please share my podcast and also like and subscribe to my YouTube page. I want you all to have a wonderful week ahead. Enjoy your week. Make some new friends. Do some things you've always wanted to do. But most of all, pray to the man upstairs to keep us all safe during this hurricane season. Bunks is out. Take care of yourself.